Ladies and gentlemen, variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. My name is Rotten Deadite, and with me today are...
I am Felix, also known as Banu Hanamisaishi.
And I'm Andrew, also known as the White Guar.
All of us so far. Today we're talking about Malacath. Patron deity or god of the Orsimer, also known as the Orcs, if you're into the whole, like, you know, fantasy cliche thing. And used to be known as Trinimac, and my goodness, does this guy ever have a history. So today what we're going to do as a fun little meta exercise for the cast is we are going to try as hard as possible not to make any poop jokes.
Oof.
That's our promise to you.
Give us 3 minutes.
We've done a lot of these, so I think we need to, like, up the difficulty a little bit, okay? we need to challenge ourselves because we need to grow as people. And so as lore beards and as entertainers, we need to grow a little. So we're going to try and do this without making any poop jokes, okay?
Oh, because I can make a joke about that right there.
I know you can, but we're gonna accept this challenge wholeheartedly because we're professionals. We're good at this.
This hurts as much as the sundering.
Yeah. So.
And there's a joke there too. Man, okay.
My evil plan is already working. So, let's talk about Malacath. Now, important thing to remember about Malacath is that he, by all rights, used to be an Aedra. Sort of. How you define an Aedra is really largely up to you, but he was certainly an Atata, and a god of some kind, certainly to the Altmer, or the Elnophe, or the Aldmer. And something happened. What it is exactly depends on who you ask. And Trinimac became Malacath, and Trinimac's followers became, who were Altmer or Aldmer, became Orsimer. In much the same way that the Chimer became Dunmer, or in a similar way that, that the Altmer became Chimer, that worshippers of the Altmer gods became, separated and became Chimer. They experienced a physical transformation, which, as we've mentioned in previous casts, may be a reflection. Maybe it might be considered to be a metaphor for the change of culture. It might be literally it happened because of a change of culture. It might be a curse. It's all kinds of interesting things. Could be all of those things all at once. So, who wants to take on the version of Trinimac's transformation into Malacath that most people know is one that involves Boethia and a fight and some things that I've challenged us not to talk about. But who
and Mephala. Mephala's also
and
there.
well, hold on. The Mephala didn't enter into it in the Dunmer version, if I recall correctly. In the Dunmer version of the story, Mephala didn't enter into it. It was just, okay, fine, I'll just say it. It was a fight between Trinimac and Boethia, which appeared to be, according to the Dunmer, very one-sided, but they love Boethia, so of course it would be. And Boethia consumed Trinimac during this battle. Either that was the battle, or this was the result of the battle, is that she consumed Trinimac and then expelled him, processed him in some way.
First, she spoke with his voice to lead the people astray.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
Yeah, and then she excreted him. And Malacath is what that god became known as from that point on. And I believe, and somebody who's better at languages will probably be able to correct me on this. I think Malacath is actually you can actually translate it to something. I think in Elnofex, but I think we've had some other Elnofex that can indicate that Malacath is actually two words or two concepts, put together. Yes, and so now, but so that's like, because I'm a Morrowind nerd and I know tons of crap I don't need to know about Dunmer. That's the version of the story that I am comfortable and the most comfortable telling. The version that the Orsimer have is much more nuanced, but doesn't exactly like contradict the Dunmer version. Yeah. Instead, what it does, so we should say the reason why the Dunmer say that Trinimac and Boethia got into a fight is because Trinimac supposedly killed Lorcan and ripped out his heart and shot it across Tamriel on the end of his arrow in a scene very...
No, that was Ariel who launched the arrow. Trinimac is the one who killed Lorcan,
yes.
but then they tried to destroy the heart, and the heart laughed and said, "This is the heart of the world, for one was made to satisfy the other." And then Ariel said, "All right, time to yeet that bitch."
Yeah, exactly. Shot that sumbitch all the way across the planet, and where it landed is...
Red Mountain.
Red Mountain, Vardenfell, which literally means the place where the heart fell. And...
Gee, I wonder where we're gonna find the heart of Lorcan.
It couldn't possibly be in a goddamn volcano, and so that's Boethia saw this, was greatly angered, and devoured Trinimac as revenge for Trinimac assisting in the destruction of Lorcan. Now the Orsimer, pardon me, that's horribly rude, believe that that similar things happened. In other words, Boethia was communicating to Veloth, and Trinimac, who because Boethia was teaching lessons that went against the teachings of Trinimac, which 36 lessons nerds like me will know that are forbidden by the Velothi, got very angry about all of this stuff, and then challenged Boethia to a duel, if I recall correctly. Confronted Boethia challenged her to a battle. Boethia and Trinimac fought, but during the battle, according to the Orsimer, Mephala came out and stabbed Trinimac in the back. And I think what they did he get swallowed at that point, or was it? Hold on, strike down Boethia. Put a ritual scar and twisted Trinimac's... did a ritual to scar and twist Trinimac's appearance, and then banished the Aedra to a place of ash. In a rage, Trinimac cut open his chest and tore out the shame from his spirit, becoming reborn as Moloch, or Malacath. I want to pause here and once again remind people that we get a lot of these sort of cultural echoes of old and ancient events and the retelling of events, and by comparing these things, you can arrive at an idea of some semblance of the truth. And 9 times out of 10, the point that we arrive at is the enantiomorph, is the requisite betrayal over and over and over again. It's just what happens in the Orsimer retelling of the tale, which is Boethia and Trinimac are fighting. One is the king, one is the thief. They are betrayed by a witness, Mephala, and then Trinimac tears out his own heart. And what we're trying to look at here is that this is a heart got torn out of somebody, and that's sort of like, you can imagine kind of this event happening a long time ago, and then 8,000 years into the future, or however far we're talking about, for considering the fact that the Dawn era was very wibbly wobbly. People don't remember the event very well. And depending on how much they had to drink, and depending on how long it's been, and depending on what their political, and cultural motives are, they tell a different story. But sometimes they remember things similarly.
Not to mention, I mean, you got like oral retellings, and things can change. Yep. It becomes a game of telephone, Some cultures are really good at that, like the Ashlanders. Their entire history is oral, but I get the feeling that they sit down and they memorize word for word what was said.
You think? Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
I know that.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible in oral histories for people to. One of the reasons why a lot of oral mythology comes down in poetry and song form is because it's easier to memorize. But one of the other reasons why this happens is because it's also harder to screw up. Because if you are sitting there going, and then from his chest his heart was tore, something more. What the hell was it? And it's if you have that constraint of trying to make a rhyme, it's harder for you to throw in your own like BS. Harder, but not impossible. And as we can also attest from, if you've ever had to read any Shakespeare, language changes. So I mean, the way we pronounce things. I mean, look at the Shakespeare. A lot of stuff rhymed in Shakespeare, and because we don't pronounce things that way anymore, we don't know. And so I think everybody here has already seen the YouTube footage of people doing Shakespeare in the original accent, and all of a sudden a lot of these lines make a lot more sense.
Almost like a pirate accent.
Yeah, it is almost kind of a piratey kind of thing.
We're talking about original pronunciation.
Yeah.
Apparently my dog just shredded a thing of toilet paper. So
Fantastic.
I was getting yelled at for that.
Is that a boxer mix?
He's a pit mix.
He's a pit mix.
Pit lab.
Got the energy of a boxer.
Yeah, I'm confident he's got some Great Dane in him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He does kind of. He's
big pupper.
Yeah, he's a big boy. Who's pretty though. Okay. Anyway. So. You think I'm a dog person? So. So what we're looking at here is. It leads credence to both tales, both of them equally, that both of them have very similar symbols, but very similar metaphors, very similar events. There was a heart that got torn out of somebody's chest. There was a betrayal. There was a battle between Trinimac and Boethia. These things line up on the two of them, and it just sort of depends on, which side of the argument you're on, who was right and who was wrong. And I love stuff like that. This is like, in my opinion, this is Elder Scrolls world building at its pinnacle. This is how you get it done, is when you have these two disparate stories, and when they meet together in the middle is very mythical and only makes both of them righter. Somehow, Well,
can I also blow your mind a little bit further with regards to Malacath / Trinimac and how it all fits together?
Well, yeah, actually, somebody has asked us if we're going to be doing any of the Trinimalacath stuff. I'd be surprised if we don't hit on the Do Malacath stuff. There's good stuff here, but yeah, go right ahead.
It's also like one of my heresies, but I can explain it. Is that Tal Papa is actually Trinimac. And that Malacath, in many ways, has, like Trinimac and what he becomes as Malacath, this aspect of changing, is actually seen routinely throughout Elder Scrolls, both for the Redguards and in Tamriel. Mm-hmm. He's the Goblin Horde King who opposed the army of the Hunding when they first arrived in Hammerfell. There's the idea that the Yokudan god Diagna, who's the Orichalc god of the Sideways Blade, and yet there's this quote in like one of the like sort of books or listings or something you can get for items in ESO. It says, "Hail Malacath, he who speaks sideways." And there's the idea of the fact that in Redguard tradition, Tal Papa is kind of always seen as like a harsh father. He makes existence very difficult, which like when the Redguard version Zet renounced his father Tal Papa, that's why Tal Papa makes it so hard to grow food, for instance. Instead of helping lift spirits after they were tricked by Sep, who you could use the Lorcon equivalent, he said, "Nope, tough shit. Figure your own new way off of your dying skin ball. That's your problem to figure out now." Which is honestly feeling like very Malacath Trinimac things. And to go further down that rabbit hole, the idea is that Trinimac ripped out Lorcan's heart with more than hands. And in the Yokudan myth, it says that Tal Papa beat Sep with a stick and the hunger fell out.
Right.
I find that there's a lot of parallels here.
Is the hunger his heart? I mean... If you could describe Lorcan as anything, hungry would definitely not be the weirdest word you could use. And that kind of again, that kind of goes with, as you're saying, it goes with the idea that a lot of these spirits are so ephemeral that they are more representations of concepts than actual beings. And so you end up with, is Lorcan an actual god? I mean, yeah, sure, don't get me wrong. But also, is Lorcan just the embodiment of the rebellious need? I mean, yeah, both. Fucking
it can be both. And swapping places, right? Like, and not to get too distracted, but I can easily have like a whole rant or cast about how the hunger could also be seen as the advent of time in the Redguard mythology, because nothing was really moving. Like all the worlds there was Satak for Serpent who came before, all the worlds to come rested in the glimmer of his scales, but they had no room to move or even be. So they called out for something, and the hunger had to come from inside, and then things start to move. What happens when things start to move? Well, that's fucking time. You can make an argument for this.
You have desire, that desire promotes, need and necessity, and that encourages movement.
It promotes the duality of it. They don't really see like Anu and Padme is separate. It's a fused concept for them, which is Satakal. But to sort of bring it back to Malacath and everything, I also want to touch on the fact that there are some heresies, not mine. Mine is the Trinimac Papa one. But there are others that say that Ebon Arm is actually just an aspect or a shadow of Trinimac.
Right.
And this is also interesting because if you consider that when Lorcan had his heart removed, the divine spark that emerged after became Sheogorath.
Right.
And Ebon Arm, whose arm is ebony, and ebony is supposed to be Lorcan's blood. There's this sword that's fused to his arm, and Sheogorath is the only Daedra that Ebon Arm doesn't fucking hate. It's kind of like, I mean, like
we're kind of lining up here a little.
I'm seeing some things here, right? And so Trinimac and like versions of Malacath, where they call him Malak, Maluk, the Horde King.
Maluk's a very weird word for me, but
Orky.
He's everywhere,
Orke,
man.
Orky or Orke?
I think it's Orky.
Is it?
Key.
I don't remember anybody pronouncing it in ESO.
Like old
so
Knocker, and that's supposed to be the Nordic version of RK.
All right, whatever.
Hang on, I got it here. Where are we here?
I think Orky or Orke is like the union of Malacath and Orke.
Literally, here's what we're gonna do. Okay, we're gonna try and get Tuttle on this cast, and all we're gonna do is ask him questions about pronunciation, and that's it. That's
sure. Also, yes, actually, it is Malacath is also known as Orky in Nordic tradition, according to the UESP page. So look at that.
I like to think the Slode think of him as the Ald Key.
Okay.
All right. Well, if you want to talk about Slode, the Nords call Malak the mountain fart. So there's your Slode connection.
Malak the mountain fart.
Yeah.
Actually, for MK's birthday, we did a thing in the Telmora for in our calendar section. Included a thing. Yeah, it's like the elk festival or something, and celebrating the time
the Merry Elk Festival. That was an eyesore to many. Yeah.
What was it? I'd have to look it up for word, but it was a celebration of when the Merry Eyesore, the elk, beat back Moloch the mountain fart. Back under the mountain or whatever.
By singing Fly Me to the Moon at him, yeah.
We are a cultured group of individuals.
Fly me to the moon.
But actually, speaking of moons and various versions of
top 10 list of the 8. Thanks, Captain. We're doing that. Top 10 list of the 8 divines.
Yeah, sure.
The top 10 8 divines. That's a great idea.
So, like, to bring this back more on track with Malacath and everything, do we want to discuss his importance to each of the various different cultures individually? Like, we talk about why he's important as an adversary to the Dunmer, as a god to the orcs, and as an adversary to the Redguards.
Well, let me first say this about the idea of him being the great adversary to Dunmer. And by the way, if the Nords consider, I don't think the Nords would call Malacath or Moloch the great adversary, but they probably would call help Shoggoth, Big Eye. Jesus, we just did him.
Oh, Hermaeus Mora.
Hermaeus Mora, their great adversary. If the Dunmer consider Moloch to be their great adversary, or Malacath, whatever you want to call him, it makes a little bit more sense, because I've had a lot of people ask me questions about Malacath, the Dumac, the Dwarf King, the King of the Dwemer, is at one point or another referred to in the 36 Lessons as Malacath. And a lot, I mean less than half a dozen people have asked me.
Is it Malacath, or is he called Dumac the Dwarf Orc?
I think he's called Malacath.
I need to check that real quick, because I don't recall that at all. But I know that there is a heresy that says that the Dwemer were actually just like steampunk Orsimer.
Yeah, I don't buy that. So
I'm not saying I agree. I'm just saying that's something I've heard.
It's in Sermon 36.
Mm-hmm.
He's called Dumac Dwarf Orc.
Dumac Dwarf Orc.
And Malacath is from the Tale of Drozira.
Oh, okay, there it is. So the reason why I would the way I explain this, and certainly the way I'm going to explain it in the commentaries whenever I get to Sermon 36 in 2030. Is
that's optimistic.
Probably. Is that the Dunmer consider the Orsimer and the and Malacath in general to sort of represent their greatest foe, or their true enemy, even though they butt heads mostly with the Nords. If you ask the Dunmer about that, they'll just talk about all the victories they had. But if the and not the fact that the Nords used to fucking run things, and but never mind, we don't talk about that. So when the
make Rich Dania great again.
So when if you read anything about the Dunmer, crediting Malacath as or crediting something as being orc-like, or or the idea of Malacath being a Dwemer or anything like that, it's because it's part of the sort of cultural amalgamation of taking all the most evil things in the world and throwing them all together. It's a little bit like what we get here in America, where you can't go 10 minutes without a politician being called the next Hitler. Like everybody in America who doesn't have a brain in their head will bring up the fact that we won WW2. And who was the big enemy in WW2? Well, it wasn't Japan, because we're good guys with them now. So must have been the Germans. And it's very similar. And so you're going to, well, it's not that similar, but it's somewhat similar. And so you end up with a kind of a similar kind of cultural appropriation of everything becomes orc. Everything becomes Malacath. I don't for 1 minute think that the Dwemer were orcs, or that the Dumac, the Dwemer king, was also an orc. I don't buy that. Mostly due to the fact that I just don't see it as something that the Dwemer would do. I don't think that they would allow an orc to run things, and I don't think that they would. I don't think if the Dwemer did actually have a king who was half orc, half Dwemer, I think they would just say that he was Dwemer, because that's just kind of the way the Dwemer were. And also, I don't buy that he was half orc anyway. But anyway, it seems very out of character for the Dwemer, which is an odd statement coming from me, considering the fact that we have almost no information about the character of the Dwemer, so at least in comparison to other people. Do we want to cover the Khajiit? Or do you have anything to add?
I don't have much to add about the Khajiit, because that's definitely one of my weak spots, is learning more about the Khajiit pantheon.
Yeah, and Michael's not here.
A little bit, but sadly, I'm no Moonsugar leader.
Yeah. I can tell you that Orca, which is the Khajiit version of Malacath, is not often mentioned in what I've read about the Khajiit. So I can only consider that he's not that much of a concern for them.
Because, I think isn't there like a city of Orkrest or something in
And elsewhere, yeah.
Yeah. So that's like that's probably their instance of, oh yeah, this one city full of orcs and they have this weird god, Orca.
Yeah. According to my map, it's
What's
just
that
to
about?
it's to the west of Rimmon.
Mm-hmm.
Like halfway across elsewhere.
Orcrest, yeah. It is an odd name. It does kind of... Orcrest or Orcrest? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good one. Orcrest?
I think it's Orc Rest.
I think so too. That's the one I'm going to side with. Yeah. But that's a guess. I don't, you know.
Well, this means we should talk a bit about I mean, this is the main god of the orcs, so perhaps we should start with them because
Sure.
like, so again, the stories, similar stories but told slightly differently. And at the end, both the Chimer and the orcs have become changed by what's happened. The orcs are now the pariah folk, which is what Orsimer means. And the Chimer have become the changed ones, and they're now headed north to smoky ashland full of bugs and suffering.
East, sort of? West? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then this makes us wonder, why did the orcs go west? Well, I guess technically, they're all leaving Somerset Isles. Yeah, okay.
So they're all going east.
The
that's
Dunmer
true.
are heading northeast, and the orcs are moving north into Little East.
Yeah.
Northeast.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, well, I mean, they're all leaving. Yeah, like I said, they're all leaving Somerset Isles, so they're all basically going east. But the Orsimer... Well, okay, so the Dunmer changed their shape or their skin, and which, as I like to suggest, is it means they've changed their culture, and they are moving. They're just leaving Somerset Isles because partially they ain't welcome around there no more, and also because they want to get away from what they think is #toxic culture. And the Orsimer are leaving, and here's what I find really interesting about both. The Orsimer, I mean, they end up settling in a number of places, if I recall correctly. Right? It's not just Hammerfell.
Well, okay, so the way I've understood the Elder Scrolls lore and history so far is that the orcs made of what they would call their homeland the Hrothgarian Mountains of High Rock, as well as the Dragontail Mountains of Skyrim.
Right. That's
sort of their homeland. But they do have colonies all over because the idea is orcs need to strike out, find a good place to live, lead a harsh life as Malacath commands, be strong, get the wives. And...
Let's come back to I actually want to bring that up because, well, anyway. But yeah, you're right. So sort of the Hammerfell-y kind of Hammerfell / Reach /
East March.
Yeah, East March, and then northwest, which would be the Daggerfall-y kind of High Rock.
North Point.
Thank you. That's it. And so it sounds because part of the problem is that the Orsimer, by Malacath's command, do not have a central cultural base. They are ordered by the teachings of Malacath to break into small tribes and fend for themselves in the wilderness. And what I want to say about that is, does that not remind you of Ashlanders?
Yes,
it does. And Malacath is also like his realm of oblivion is the Ash Pit.
Right. So once again, we've got So how is it that these two cultures are so at odds with each other, and they blame each other for the position that they're in? And yet, so at the same time, so similar, or have so many similarities. The Ashlander, I'm not talking about House Dunmer culture, I'm talking about Ashlander culture and Orsimer culture have a lot of parallels. It's, go out to where it's shitty and eke out a life and that's as rough as possible. It's the Orsimer are really more like sort of I want to say kind of like more Mountain Dew gung ho about this kind of like like extreme sports kind of about this kind of lifestyle. I think because they're like like they're more a little bit Mountain Dew and Doritos about it, because they're like because they lean into it really really hard, and it's very much like it's very much like make your life as rough as possible. It's sort of like people who do Dark Souls challenge runs. Like, I'm going to do all of Dark Souls at level 1, or I'm going to do all of Dark Souls using only fist weapons, or something like that.
Do all of Dark Souls with the Guitar Hero guitar.
Exactly, yeah, that kind of insane shit. And they go out and they do this stuff, and they make their lives purposefully as rough as possible. Now, on one hand, they do it now, like people who do Dark Souls challenge runs do it because they're like, hey, I've got a knack for this, and also I feel kind of cool when I've accomplished this ridiculous task. Whereas the Orsimer seem to do it because they seem to think that this is preparing them for something. Right?
Okay,
like
so
they have to toughen up for something. It's not like they're going. It's not like it would be like if somebody learns how to play Dark Souls, doing nothing but rolls and backstabs because they want to get better at rolls and backstabs. Right.
Okay, so Chris, I just got to really bring up something real quick because your Mountain Dew comment. So hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
This means that the Orsimer are classic Mountain Dew, the nice green tinge. Dunmer are voltage.
Right.
Which is the best blue flavor. So I'm kind of like.
Which means that Marin's Dagon is Code Red.
Yeah, Marin's Dagon is absolutely
Code Red. Yeah.
Patron god of gamers, like right there.
Is this on topic? No, it's not.
Yes, it is. We're talking about Malacath.
Dunmer Baja Blast, get the fuck out. All right. Well.
We've gone over half an hour without poop jokes, so
we're doing really good. I think we can go off topic for a little bit. So.
Well, okay, hang on. We do need to talk about poop a little bit, but not with like a joke.
Okay.
Because it is said in one of the versions of the Malacath origin story that his followers rub the excrement on their skin,
and that's what changed their appearance.
Skin.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have to talk about that.
And
oh my god, the urge to make a
joke.
Ugh!
Stop it. Malacath himself says that part of the story is taken way too literally. I think he says
that's what he says, but he has an impetus to say that, right? Because he's like,
yeah.
no, I totally wasn't like shut out by another guy.
It's ridiculous. It totally didn't happen.
Man,
Anybody says that's a jerk.
That wasn't me. It was somebody else.
It was some other guy.
That was some total ass.
I was totally cool back then. Everybody really liked me.
Yeah, that wasn't Malacath. That was Kath Mala.
Probably lesbian. So anyway, so the Dunmer, you could argue that Ashlander culture has a similar goal, although I don't know if Veloth actually understood this or not. It seems to be kind of what Coda kind of wants to suggest, is that the Ashlander culture of go out, live underneath a mountain where it's really, really shitty and eat bugs, was supposed to toughen them up in this sort of, like, as we've mentioned before, you can check this one off on your bingo cards, Duke Leto's Golden Path in Dune. It's supposed to make everybody tougher so that when the big test comes, in other words, when Numidium comes back from doing the stompy robot thing all over other dimensions, the Dunmer will be able to be badass enough to flee to wherever the fuck it is they have to flee.
Moon.
Well, it's a lot of places actually, but yeah. The moon was the last one.
On the note of toughening them up, I mean, isn't that Malacath's whole role? Like, isn't that what the House of Troubles is all about?
Yeah, well, for the Dunmer, yeah.
It's not that they're necessarily adversaries. It's that they're here to make things more difficult so that the Dunmer people can grow. So and I think Malacath himself, what's his test? Because Marin's Dagon is the land, so like earthquakes and volcanoes and stuff like that. Shoggoth is the mind. Malacath is physical weakness. Physical weakness. Yes. Thank you, Finn.
I was going to say also possibly of the spirit, but physical weakness is definitely more appropriate.
Yeah.
He despises weakness.
Yeah. No, I think more like Ball is spirit, which makes a lot of sense.
That could be, because he breaks people's spirit. That's why he rapes and conquers. On the subject of Malacath and the testing, I feel like this is a good way to segue into how Trinimac / Malacath fit into the Redguard pantheon as adversaries. So as I mentioned earlier, when the Redguards first came, they encountered an enemy god named Maluk, who was he was known as the Horde King, and he led this grand army of goblins. Some goblins were like massive giant goblins, apparently. Of course, unreliable narrator. You could just say, yeah, no, we were so awesome. We slaughtered like a 20-foot tall goblin, but it was maybe just like an 8-foot tall orc, maybe? Like, you don't know.
You should see the other guy.
But it does speak to the fact that when they arrived, they were already being faced by another adversary on top of their current adversary, who's arguably Tall Papa, who makes things difficult. They've just lost their homeland, but again, because they're used to suffering and their whole outlook is existence is pain, existence is suffering. Well, of course, our continent sank. It sank for a reason, and that's why we're fleeing across the ocean. And now, oh, look, more desert to conquer. This will be our new home, and we got to kill everyone because that's just part of existence. And so the main god that they talk about as an adversary when they arrive is not actually Lorcan or Sep. It is Maluk, who's basically giving them the most trouble, and they have to fight the most battles that claim the most souls of some of the leftover Anse and warriors, ultimately forcing them either into the Dragontail Mountains and then eventually out of the Dragontail Mountains, which is why the Rothgarian Mountains are now the home of the orcs, and that's where Orsinium is built. So the adversary as well for me, with regards to the Redguards and how Maluk might be just a version of it, is it might also make necessary or give purpose to the Hunding, which is the make way god. And Redguard myth and tradition holds that the Horde King Maluk was defeated by the army of the Hunding, which is why there are no more goblins in Hammerfell, allegedly. So that's just some other stuff relating to Trinimac and Tall Papa for that. And excuse me 1 minute.
So, sure. So that's...
Hi, Chris.
Yeah, hi. So to Felix's point, Maluk is an adversary in the respect that it was one of the first forces of opposition that the Redguards faced when they came to Hammerfell. Which sort of makes sense considering the fact that they were, the orcs were occupying the area of Hammerfell at the time, so you can't really call them a force of opposition. You could probably call them the natives. But, well, whatever.
That makes me think about, to connect Dwemer and Orsimer again. I mean, we got Clan Rorken also in that area.
Yep.
So, I mean, it stands to reason that there could be some intermingling between Dwemer and Orsimer.
Do you honestly think the Dwemer were actually going to intermingle with anything? Those people were inbred as fuck.
Oh, I mean, some of them, maybe.
Okay, can we just appreciate that visual joke? They literally inbred themselves out of existence. Bravo, sir. Bravo.
Yeah, I totally lost my train of thought.
We're talking about Malacath and the Dwemer and Clan Borkin.
Yeah, well, Chris was saying how the Orsimer were they're kind of like natives to Hammerfell when the Regatta showed up.
Yeah, like the Netties, some Altmer and Orsimer and goblins were the natives when the Redguards arrived. When the Redguards arrived, the Dwemer had apparently already gone bye-bye.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the Clan Rorken actually, it would have shown up in Hammerfell pretty late in the game, comparatively speaking, because that's at the beginning of.
Oh, ignore me.
Oh, what's it called? At the beginning of Resdania. So that was first era easily.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure if I have the timeline correct, like the Dwemer were already gone for like a century or so.
Yep.
At least by the time the Redguards first showed up.
Oh wait, no. Resdania was Merethic era, wasn't it? Things I really ought to know. Okay, I'll look it up later.
All I know is that the Redguards show up in first era, I think 801 or 808.
Yeah, I thought.
And by that point, the Dwemer, the Clan Rorken were already gone. Their automatons were just running the ruins there in Hegeth or Hegathe, however you pronounce it.
Hagath. Yeah, no, that would have been Merethic era. Because okay. So the Code of Malacath is one of my favorite things to speculate about because the teachings of Trinimac is something mentioned in the 36 lessons by benefit of the fact that it's taught to Vivek and it's called forbidden, and that's all you know about it. And that shit fascinates me because I'm like, wait a minute, the Dwemer forbade the teachings of Trinimac? What the hell were the teachings of Trinimac? And it doesn't really mean that the teachings of Trinimac were necessarily, antithetical to the Velothi teachings, but it could mean that it's simple as these were the teachings of our enemy, and so we don't teach the teachings of our enemy, even if they are similar and really valuable. But I like to think that they were really like very, not in alignment with Velothi teaching. And considering how similar culturally the Velothi are to the Orsimer, that's even more complex. Like to think about how considering how similar the two basic concepts are. I mean, is it going to be something like you should learn how to work iron, and the Velothi are like, fuck that, we don't have any iron in Hammerfell anyway. So, I don't know, it's different. But the teachings of Malak, we do have a little bit of the code that's mentioned, especially in ESO, by NPCs. I don't know if there are any books that explicitly state them, or any of them really.
The full Code of Malacath?
I don't think there's a full code. I don't even know if there's snippets, but I do know that there are NPCs who will give you like a rough outline of it, and the rough outline is frequently things like, pretty basic shit. Don't steal from people.
Okay. So what it says here is it's a set of rules that, broadly speaking, is do not steal, do not kill, do not attack without reason, fight with honor, protect your tribe. Those who break these rules must pay the blood price.
Yeah, which can usually be substituted for gold in many cases.
But sometimes it literally means your ass gets bled.
Yeah, which I like to think that different tribes, different strongholds
interpret it differently.
Yeah. So I like to think there's a group, in a stronghold somewhere where they interpret it like Bushido. So like, oh, well, I pay the blood price. Oh, there's seppuku right there.
Right. If I voluntarily pay the blood price, does that mean something? Or if the person I've wronged claims the blood price, can they just sit there and say they're not satisfied until I've literally exsanguinated myself? I mean, it's
No,
which I think makes sense with the
Felix, go. You're about to explode.
Yeah, okay, because there's like a lot of stuff that we've covered that I didn't really want to interrupt, but there's a lot of things going on here. So as far as I can tell, the blood price in the Code of Malacath is largely inspired by the Pashtunwali Code of the Pashtun people of Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Wow.
I found this post on Tumblr that talks a bit about it. Pretty much, also a lot of Orcish names are derived from Pashtun names as well. Sorry, hang on a second.
Okay. This is all stuff that I've never heard this before, so this is very new to me. Oh, you can compare Veloth leading the Chimer to their homeworld to Thuleg leading the Orcs to Hrothgar. Yeah, right, Johnny. I mean, there's a lot of parallels between these two. Yeah, the Velothi know when to say the safe word, but Malacath and Molag don't believe in a safe word. I think I've made exactly that point. The samurai appearance of Orsimer. Yeah, man, I agree. Like, I think that.
I mean, that's mostly where I got the idea, because I think the idea of samurai orcs is so cool.
Right? It's cool right up there with samurai orcs on giant fuzzy caterpillars, which I'm still kind of upset we don't have.
Which I think the Achater were supposed to be like kind of a middle ground. Because, I mean, they're multi-limbed and they're furry, but
yeah, well, antlers. But I'd say the biggest argument is how the fuck do you do that in a video game? I mean, seriously.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Some shit was happening outside. So, okay. So, basically, the Pashtunwali is very similar to the Code of Malacath. And a lot of orcs have very similar Afghan... Dari and Pashtun names. And in this post that I found, it talks about how in Afghanistan, the Pashtuns follow the Pashtunwali, which is an unwritten and strict ethical code and traditional lifestyle.
Unwritten.
In Tamriel, the orcs follow the Code of Malacath, an unwritten and strict ethical code and traditional lifestyle. And both codes, like the Pashtunwali and the Code of Malacath, have what amount to blood price. In the Pashtunwali, to seek justice or revenge can only be redressed by shedding the offender's blood. In the Code of Malacath, if you offend or victimize an orc, you either pay enough in goods for your crimes, or you bleed enough that the victim is satisfied. And this also brings together the concepts of honor, duty to one's family and tribe, of rigid social class and hierarchy, polygamy, loyalty, pride, bravery. These are all incredibly important to these very similar cultures. And the fact that they have similar names, cultural and religious traits, they tend to live in like hard scrabble areas, so like dusty plains, deserts, mountains, like not fertile valleys and stuff like that. So as this person was arguing, for all these reasons and other examples given above, I implore you all to consider the orcs as Tamriel's equivalent of the Afghans. So that I wanted to really get in there, but now also I forget because of shit that's been going on, what we were talking about a little bit before, because like I raised my hand because there was something you said that I could sort of explain, but I can't remember it now, and now I'm mad.
Well, what the hell were we talking about? Good link. Well, we were talking about the forbidden teachings of Trinimac, and why yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Tell me the difference between how Malacath speaks, what Trinimac commands, and the forging maxims listed in the Book of Circles.
And the forging maxims listed in the Book of Circles.
Yeah, it's like part of the Book of Circles. It's called like the 8 forging maxims or something like that, which is how you have to like bless and do all this stuff to the metal to make like superior Redguard steel.
Forging maxims. In the clay smelter you shall build a charcoal fire of a heat to blacken teeth. Interesting measuring technique. You shall add a layer of iron sand upon the charcoal. After 6 yarbans, you shall add a layer of charcoal atop the iron. You shall repeat this process, layering iron sand over charcoal for 3 days, etc., 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 etc. I think what you want me to get to is... You shall sharpen the sword skin until it may shave an egg without breaking it. You shall speak the oblation to Ansi, then drink the purifying beverage of Kotu. Then Ansalim? Ansalim, yes. Okay, so what am I getting at here?
So the forging maxims, how they're talking about things in terms of blacking teeth, shaving an egg. It's basically, in my interpretation, about further understanding the world.
Of what?
The world. Zawarudo, existence.
Zawarudo, yeah.
Because these are not typical things of like, yeah, make sure it gets to like a proper internal temperature and then beat the dust out of the metal. It's talking about really weird and different shit. And somewhere, I can't remember where at the moment, because like I didn't research it because this isn't the Trinimac episode. But Trinimac somewhere says something about like forging or steel. I forget what it is. And then when you think about the part of the story with Trinimac before it becomes Malacath, he rips out his own spirit in like, I guess you could say, emulation of Lorcan, and has said that tears are the best response to the sundering. I'm seeing that there's actually a lot of parallels between like an older like Yokudan god who kind of came over and became something new, because when you travel east you change into the new dawn of possibility. I don't know how much of that Andrew caught. I saw him moving around.
Just a second, I'm making a note.
I can't hear you, Andrew.
Yep, sorry, my wife just left for work, so I had to say goodbye.
Until I see you on the morrow, darling dearest.
Still writing something down.
She'll be getting home at about 1 a.m. So.
Rough.
Yeah.
The problem with having this many notes on Elder Scrolls is that it takes a long time to find the place you're looking for.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, but no, I missed most of that.
Well, you'll just have to watch the VOD later on then.
Yeah, because we're not repeating it.
I'm not too worried about it.
So what he's saying is that in the teachings of Trinimac, or in the words and phrases used by Trinimac, and in lessons by or quotes of Malacath, or even for that matter, similar cultural statements in Redguard lore, we have somewhat similar terminology, or use of symbolism, and
why not both?
Why? Yeah, ¿por qué no los dos? So I think what you're getting at here is that we can kind of make a guess about what the tone would have been like for the teachings of Trinimac, which makes it makes a lot of sense that it would have been sort of very heavy on the on things like, like you said, make it hot until you can blacken teeth. Trinimac was supposed to be a warrior god, so it makes sense that he would think in warrior terminology of violence and viscera and etc. And Malacath himself is also, if you think about it, still a warrior god. It's just, even by Malacath's own admittance, he would be a god of defeated warriors. So it's sort of like here's what I would recommend. If you want to think about the differences between the teachings of Trinimac and the teachings of Saint Veloth, or the teachings of Boethia, you have to consider the opposite, the ways that two warriors, because again, Boethia is a warrior and so is Trinimac, the way two warriors would teach the same thing, or would teach the same lesson, but with completely different methods, right? So Boethia likes to characterize herself as a as a warrior, but also as the Prince of Plots, as the Prince of overthrowing unjust rule, and etc. this is a role that the overthrowing of unjust rule is a role that we typically assign in the enantiomorph to the thief. Trinimac, who describes himself in a much more traditional warrior sense, would probably therefore take on roles that are much closer to the king, to the warrior, to the protection of the status quo, so to speak, you know? So I would anticipate rules, I would anticipate Trinimac's lessons being something along the lines of respect authority, or respect respect tradition above everything else, obey tradition, and so on. And I would expect the teachings of Boethia and Veloth to be usurp authority or trust your instincts above all else, and worship you worship your ancestors, and also uphold tradition, but only when it proves to be useful. Certainly something that that Vivek definitely seems to encourage, the approach of take only the things that are, keep nothing in your house that is not useful or beautiful. There has to be a threshing of weeds, to use Vivek's terminology. But I suspect that Malacath's manipulation of if Trinimac's rules changed when Trinimac became Malacath, I think it would have changed from it would have been less about, respect the authority of the Altmer and high elf culture, and it would have been more along the lines of forge your own culture and then respect that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, also, I would like to add, I don't know if we mentioned it earlier or not, but in one of the versions of the story of when Boethia beat Trinimac, it says that she actually wore Trinimac's skin, or she spoke with his voice to show the falsehood of his words. So that, I think, also helps explain why with the Ashlanders, or who still hold true to ancient Velothi teachings, as well as the orcs, have very similar views, because it's all tied to Boethia, the Prince of Plots, right? Like, no matter what, Boethia wins.
Yeah. That's actually, Captain just pointed out something in chat that's very interesting. In like ancient Japan, women used to blacken their teeth, which was supposed to be something that was considered beautiful. Which throws me.
Yeah, during the Heian period.
Yeah.
Time to Photoshop Marie Kondo as Vivek. This house does not spark joy.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to get into some of the conspiracy theories about Malacath and who he really is, and is that something we're ready for?
Who he really is? How do you mean?
Well, we can talk about it. I think the last thing we should make mention of, as like a basis of the lore, is that in ESO there is a faction that believes that worshiping Malacath is false, and that orcs should worship Trinimac instead, and so it's basically the cult of Trinimac. Yeah. And I think they also have like a faction of like their warriors or security guards or something, which are the Voshrak, which is the name of Trinimac's sword, which is just penitent in Altmeri, I think, or in the Orcish language. That's about the only other thing I had to say related to Malacath and how some people viewed him and his falsehood, I guess you could say, just in a different way, with the cult of orcs who want to worship Trinimac instead of Malacath. But we know how that turns out. Malacath's still in, baby.
Porter in chat also asked me if we're going to bring up Mithras. We would if I had not been such a fucking chump and actually done my reading on Mithraic mysteries.
Because I think, that's something MK outright said.
Like, I actually asked him about the forbidden teaching of Trinimac, and he told me, like, read up on Mithras. Did I do that? Fuck no.
I have a piece in the Telmora Independent Press, which is like Tall Papa as Trinimac, and actually touches a bit on the Mithraic mysteries.
Okay.
I'm still learning more about it because I kind of like sat with it after I'd finished, and I thought, well, what about the other side? And so I started to try and delve a bit more into like Mithra and Mithras, because they're two different things. Mithra is the Persian variant, which I focused on in that article. But if you're talking about Mithras, the Roman army cult deity, that is more representative of a celestial teaching. There's a lot of symbolism that goes on in the Tauroctony, which is the main thing, which is the slaying of the bull. And Mithras is, again, being like related to the sun. He's looking at the sun because I believe at this point was when the sun would rise through the constellation Taurus, slaying it, therefore representing the triumph of like the sun or winter. There's some other thing in there. I've only just started delving into that part.
Okay, seasonal
but of course,
transition.
There's other constellations. Like there's a scorpion representing Scorpio going for the testicles of the bull as Mithras holds it down and prepares to slay it. So there's a lot of cosmic symbolism there, which I'm just now starting to brush up on.
What was
for people who want a bit of like the Persian Mithra that was that the Romans got it inspired from? You can read that on the Telmore Independent Press.
Okay.
I think
God of Justice and Social Contracts. Oh, okay, yeah, that does have a strong Malacath, you know. So marriage. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I don't feel like finding the article and just reading it out here, especially since that has to do more with like a conspiracy theory rather than Malacath. But
I should double check to make sure I actually put it on the website, because I usually do, but lately I've been a slack ass.
So hopefully people can see that on their own time. But those are sort of the last things I just wanted to say about Malacath, and like touching on Mithras a bit, is like there is some stuff out there that you can use as a starting point. It's not definitive, but it's a starting point.
Doc, what do you want to do when you want to talk about the Ash Pits?
And
Hogwarts house.
Which
Hogwarts house would Malacath fit in? And we'll get to it, I'm sure. You don't have Harry Potter on your bingo card by any chance, do you? So what do we know about the Ash Pits? Does anybody want to talk about the Ash Pits?
From what I can gather, there's actually very little. They're just this desolate land of ash and smoke and heat. It's described as monstrously unpleasant, and it's populated by Malacath's servants, the dull-witted Ogram. So, which I mean, last I recall, like I haven't seen an Ogram since Morrowind.
Wait, they weren't in Oblivion?
No.
If they were, I didn't see them.
No, I think the only Daedra in Oblivion. I mean, we got, I think the Atronox, we get Spider Daedra, Dremora.
Get the Zivili or whatever they're called.
Zivli, Scamps,
Golden Saints.
Oh yeah, we do. I was
Ogram were in Oblivion, yeah.
Were they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. There was. I'll never forget the first time I saw an Ogram in a like Dwemer rune. I was like, "The fuck is this?
Why does it have a nipple ring?"
Yeah, that too. I was like,
"That is unnecessary." How many polys did they have to blow on that fucking nipple ring?
No,
I'm just imagining Kurt Coleman saying, "Look, it's just really important to me." Okay?
They were not actually in Oblivion. They were in Morrowind, ESO, and featured in the Legends. That's the only place
Okay.
According to the UESP. I can't recall what Ograms looked like in Oblivion.
Aww.
What a noise.
I know. You want to go do the thing. You want to go have a small journey around the block. I know.
Yes,
can't say the W word.
Yeah, no, I can't. Unless I'm going to take him.
Right.
I will, just not right now. I don't want to get his hopes up yet.
Yeah, I'm looking at the UASP entry for the Ash Pit right now, and there's...
There really isn't anything.
There we go.
So Ash Pit has a giant skeletal spine running through it. Does it, in fact? A bone fragment of the Ash Pit spine. Oh, yeah.
That's the leftover bone of Trinimac. At least I think that's what it is.
From the spine of the Ash Pit. The gray block is so light as to be hollow, and it sheds dust of a similar color as though it were made of the stuff. Wow. Okay.
I found your article, Felix. I had to go and look.
Okay.
It was the first issue of my redesign.
I need to reboot my MacBook more than anything in this world. It is absolutely crawling right now. How many VMs am I running? Just a moment while I, oh, my gentle Jesus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
My gentle Jesus.
I'm running 7 Docker containers, and that's why it's slow right now.
I'm gonna use that from now on. My gentle Jesus.
Oh, my gentle
Captain
Jesus.
Volko
I got that
says,
from a...
Trinimac had no spine. I challenge that.
Trinimac had plenty of spine.
That spine would be in Boethiah's realm? I don't know, because, like, if Trinimac stands tall as the, like, champion of the ancient Aldmeri pantheon, and Mythala stabs him in the back before Boethiah strikes down the killing blow before eating him, what's left to remove of your spirit but your pride that held you tall? It's your spine, your back, the weight of the world and your purpose removed forthwith.
I have a new headcanon that I just now decided. That Malacath actually weaves the spines of his defeated enemies into his hair, so he gets these like spine dreadlock things.
Well,
I think
that's pretty fucking 40K. So yeah, all right.
I think that sounds rad. So that's what's gonna happen.
Does it sound rad though? Yeah, we'll go with it. Yeah,
like almost a predator kind of thing.
Yeah. This gets the rad, label. It's just fucking Blackpool. Yeah,
that's just.
it's canon now. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, we wanted to actually sort of move on to some of the conspiracy
theories concerning Malacath are actually pretty good. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So we got lots to work with.
There's one that I like the most. I don't know if I necessarily subscribe to it, but I dig it. And so the idea, I don't remember where I heard this from.
Orcs or Glimmer?
No, it might have been on Tesla or somewhere. Someone might have mentioned it. Maybe it was John Burnson. I don't know. But the idea is that Malacath is not directly Trinimac, but actually the progeny of Trinimac and Boethiah. That Boethiah somehow tricked Trinimac into copulating with her, which produced Malacath. And so,
she ate him.
Yeah, and so Malacath is everything that Trinimac is, but without the shame. And so for Trinimac, he was like, well, shit, this guy's now my legacy. I guess I gotta go fuck off and self-exile. And so he becomes Ebon Arm. And so he's so vengeful about the fact that Malacath is his son. Like, that's a shameful thing for him. I'm just gonna dispense with the Trinimac title. I am now Ebon Arm.
I am the god of war.
And you're all my bitches.
I'm with you, but I still would prefer it if we could integrate the heart removal spirit removal thing. There's a way that we could integrate that in there would feel more truthy,
Yeah.
In what sense do you mean? Like Trinimac removing his spirit or removing the heart of Lorcan?
Well, I like any theory about the creation of Malacath or the betrayal of Trinimac or whatever that has elements of all the other of the Dunmer version of the story and the Orsimer version of the story. But the main beats that I personally like to hear are the betrayal and the removal of or the tearing out of something or the splitting open of a chest or similar.
I mean, if Trinimac is dispensing with his name, that's the heart of who he is.
So he tears out his own name. There you go.
Or it could be he tears out his compassion. You know, have a heart.
Oh,
Tears
yeah.
that out and becomes an enemy kind of figure in the form of Ebon Arm.
Okay,
It could be both. Could be neither. I don't know.
Well, okay. How's this, right? So, like, as I had said, sort of towards the beginning of the cast in excitement, is you know, Ebony is supposedly the like oxidized blood of Lorcan, and Trinimac ripped out Lorcan's heart with more than hands. It could be a sword, it could be a tower, it could be a big stick, which is why I think Tall Papa.
It could be a penis.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's shaped like a penis.
Anyway, the point is that perhaps when Trinimac, before he becomes Maulock and speaks the code, and he rips out his spirit, it's his warrior spirit, the black shadow of himself. So when he rips out his spirit, that's when Ebon Arm is born. And so it's no longer Trinimac. That spirit is the birth of the god of war, Ebon Arm, who's like a shadow of Trinimac's former glory, becomes a sort of minor god to various different cultures. That's also why he's black, because it's the remains of like the last element of Trinimac's glory when he removed Lorcan's heart. And also it explained why the only Daedra that Ebon Arm doesn't hate is Sheogorath, because Sheogorath was born in a similar fashion. Because when the heart of Lorcan was removed, Sheogorath was the divine spark that burst forth from the black void afterwards. And so in a similar sort of birth story, Ebon Arm could see Sheogorath as kind of like his kin to a certain extent. I think that's how we can marry those concepts together.
That's a good one. Sure. Yeah, that's a good one. Do you have any other? Do we want to do any other conspiracy theories here, or without mentioning the orcs or glamour?
That's the main one. The one that, yeah. I mean, that's just the one that I like the most that I've heard, and I jive with it. I don't know if I believe it or agree with it, but it's certainly cool.
There's of course my thing is that Malacath took over as the adversary god for the Redguards when they first came to Hammerfell. But I also like the idea that Todd Damrath put into my head several years ago about how Diagna is I think it's the hoary, thuggish cult god of the Redguards or something like that, and also known as the Orichalc god of the Sideways Blade. And some see Orichalc as basically another name for Orichalcum. This is actually debatable, but that's beside the point. But you know, that is an interesting thing that you could sort of try and look into and tie together. And it is said in one of the maxims that I shared earlier that in one of these books in ESO, it says, "Hail Malacath, he who speaks sideways."
Yeah. And
Todd had said something else about like somewhere like it was Malacath or Diagna who spoke all language sideways. And fuck, there was something else. Speaks all language sideways, Orichalc god of the Sideways Blade, and what is walking at strange angles but walking sideways to one's own spirit or something like that. So there's some interesting connections that can be made between Diagna and Malacath as these sort of I can't say that they're good or bad gods. They're just gods, and this is largely true for the Redguards. Like another thing is there is no equivalent in Tamriel for Onsi, the Bone Shaver, who first taught the Redguards how to pull their knives into swords. He taught them how to do that, which again kind of sounds like a weird smithing thing. And
it does, doesn't it?
That brings us to, you know, Malacath and Orcish forging and heat and fire and smelting, and it's like there's some connections here that we're not talking about.
I don't know if it's related, but that bit in the maxims about the center of a blade being low carbon steel and the edge being high carbon steel, that's literally how katanas are made. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I'm sorry, but like the Book of Circles is Miyamoto's Book of Five Rings by another name.
it's really not even, they're not even trying to conceal it. It's I like Ansei lore a whole lot, but Jesus fucking Christ, guys.
Although,
and who's the best Ansei? Gaiden Shinji, which is a very Japanese sounding name.
Well, I tried to argue that Gaiden Shinji was analogous to like Sun Tzu.
Sure,
once,
but again, still
but then I was told that Zurin Arctis is actually Sun Tzu because the art of war magic. But
hey, there you go. The other thing I want to talk about a bit, it's only slightly related, so forgive me. This does kind of result in us going off topic for a little bit, but I find it sort of interesting, and I'm still trying to wrestle with this personally, that there seems to be little to no distinction, or not distinction, but clarification in Redguard lore and history as to whether goblins are actually goblins or if they're orcs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never clarified. It's like, yeah, we killed all the goblins, and yet you look at some of the comics and stuff, and it's those are orcs.
Yeah.
And you say, yeah, well, whatever. It's like,
you know,
they're all elves. We killed them anyway.
They're green and they smell funny. Whatever.
What are you telling us?
Prior to, I think, Morrowind, orcs are considered beast folk in the same way that goblins are. Like, they're kind of lumped together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were even playable until Morrowind. I mean,
yeah, I don't think they were.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it was.
Yeah, because
race
before Morrowind, they were just orcs.
Yeah, just
Pig TTs.
Yeah, pig TT. No, they were just orcs. They were just regular ass like Tolkien orcs, and then
you have pig TTs.
Big TTs. That's right. Daddy, why you do this?
You brought my pig TTs.
But yeah, so like that was just the one thing that I did want to touch on. So the idea of the Goblin Horde King Malacath, like, okay, maybe they're goblins, or maybe it's just like a dialect of Orcish language, and they're actually orcs or a subset of orcs. Like it's never fully clarified, unfortunately. But that again just sort of touches on how Malacath seems to be everywhere in some way. Either he's as Trinimac still being venerated in the Somerset Isles and in parts of, I think maybe Trinimac is part of the Breton Pantheon, I forget. You have him as the adversary to the Redguards. You have him as the counterbalance to the Dunmer, or rather the Chimer and the Velothi origin. So he's kind of everywhere in some form or another, whether it's as Trinimac, Malacath, or as some of the conspiracy theories suggest, Ebon Arm.
Trinimac is not in the Breton Pantheon.
Okay, thank you for checking.
According to Varieties of Faith, at least, which is usually pretty
relatively accurate. Yeah, like I know some of the Altmer gods. Like I think Finaster and or Xerxes are in the Breton Pantheon.
Finaster, Ephraim, Magnus, and Sheor.
Right. Okay. Sheor is just their version of Shore, I think.
Well, Shore and Sheogorath.
I thought Sheor was Breton Shore.
He's the bad man, source of all strife. I know he's the god of crop failure. He's a demonized version of the Nordic Shore or Aldmeri Lorcan.
Yeah, there we go.
But I see the name is too similar to Sheogorath to ignore.
And we've got our first bingos in chat. Congratulations.
Oh, hey!
Congratulations to those of you who've won. You've won nothing.
You're our millionth customer. Well, what do I win? Nothing. Now get out.
Nothing. Take your receipt and get the fuck out.
Congrats. Who won? Oh, Tordic. Where does he even say this?
Loud background noise. I don't know. My dog has been whining at me.
It really wants outside. Yeah.
He does so bad.
Do we want to wind this up? Because I feel bad for the white horse pupper.
Also, yeah, I've pretty much gone through all my notes.
I've said pretty much everything I've got. And we've gone for an hour and 20. We're doing okay.
Wow, damn, okay.
So yeah, I think we did pretty good.
I'm surprised we actually managed to talk about Malacath for the most part.
I'm not. There's a lot here.
It kind of like veered into orcs, which is understandable.
That's fine. You can't really separate the two.
Related stuff. Like I did bring up how like Malacath's related to Trinimac and Ebon Arm, which brings us to the Redguards. Like, you know,
it's the only god that the orcs have. They go hand in hand as far as I'm concerned. If you've got a culture that worships one god, you can't talk about that god and not talk about that culture too, and vice versa, really. So, yeah. So next up is a god named Mehrunes Dagon. Never heard of him.
Ooh.
I don't know. There's probably not much on him, like a whole game or anything.
So we're gonna have fun with that one.
Yeah,
I like that one.
That's gonna be a good one. That's Mehrunes the Razor. That means we get to talk about Oblivion and we get to talk about.
When I play Pokemon, I name my Machamp Mehrunes because he's got
We're probably gonna talk about Lig as well, I assume.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. There's a lot of lore to cover there.
King,
Demon Leaper King, not just Demon King. Demon Leaper King.
Yeah.
Coincidentally known as the enemy of Ebon Arm, but then again, who isn't? So,
like I said, everyone's an enemy except Sheogorath.
Except Sheogorath. So let's say 2 weeks from today, unless something happens. I think that's. Hold on a second. Actually, let me check something.
September 5th, it looks like.
September 5th? Okay, because what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to stay aware of the fact that on, I think, the 25th, the new Warframe expansion comes out, and I might vanish off the face of the earth when that happens.
Right, okay.
So yeah, September 5th, I think we'll be fine, unless the new World of Warcraft expansion comes out, in which case...
Bye,
yeah, ditto. But we don't have a date for that, and I don't think it's going to be September 5th. That'd be way too fast. Okay, so wave goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm doing this weird hunch thing.